Well, hello there. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tabitha Gabrielle. And today I'm going to be doing a recent reads video. So at the end of last year, I had started doing monthly reading wrap-ups, and then in January of 2024, I only read one book. So I was like, yeah, I'm not about to make a whole video just for that one book. And now it's March, because that's how time is flowing these days. What's going on? What is going on? And then guess what? The one book that I read in January, that is the only book from my physical TBR that I read. So
that's where we're at.
The first book that I read this year was Four Dead Queens by Astrid Scholte. We're gonna go with that, Scholte. Miss Astrid. The heck. This was so good. The way I actually came about reading this book is because I was sitting in a restaurant one night with my boyfriend and I was looking at Goodreads, and I just got this random idea to just have him pick out a random book from Goodreads. And he was going in and looking at the covers of books and going in and looking at the description and everything. And he read the description on this one and he was like, this one. It was like the fifth one he had looked at. And I was like,
are you sure you don't want to look at any of the others?
And he was like,
no, I've decided. I want you to read that one.
So Four Dead Queens is like a sci-fi fantasy mystery type of crossover book. And I loved it. It was very, very good. So our main characters in this book are Carolee and Varen. And if y'all have seen the little cartoon Arcane that's based off of that game League of Legends, which I have never played but my boyfriend knows about, if you've ever watched that show, it's a very similar world concept, I feel like, because it has all those fantasy elements, but also there's like an element of technology and this like advanced type of society. It's like divided in 4 sectors. I forget what they're called, but it's divided into 4 sectors, and each of those 4 sectors is ruled by a queen. And all 4 of those queens live together in one palace, kind of like in the middle of everything. And they particularly rule over their sector, but they also kind of help each other make those rulings. And so it's kind of like this matriarch society where they all rule everything together. And there's like a whole history, a whole political history on how it became that. Just a basic little map here. So you have the mainland, which is made up of Ionia, which is like the tech, super smart area, like where all the technology and medicine and stuff like that comes from. Then you have Ludia. I think I'm saying these names right. Then you have Ludia. They're very focused on entertainment and pleasures and stuff like that. And then you have Toria, which is the coastal region that our main character Carolee is from. And then lastly you have Archia, which is kind of disconnected from the mainland, but it's still part of this realm. So yeah, just to give you a lay of the land a little bit. So these are the 4 queens that rule over their respective sectors. And so Carolee, our main character, is from this area. And she is tasked with stealing a device from a character in this area, like the smart, techie region and stuff. So she ends up stealing this device. And what does she find on this device?
Evidence that a queen has been murdered.
So then there's like all of this drama that unfolds, and it was a fast-paced ride from beginning to end. I found it very, very entertaining, and I would rate it 5 stars. I did put these content warnings on my Goodreads account, so I'm going to put that review up on the screen for you to read just in case it's relevant to you. There was some of that content, but it was not so much that I felt like it was too much or that I couldn't handle it. The second book that I read, or I guess rather listened to, was Character, The Art of Role and Cast Design for Page, Stage, and Screen by Robert McKee. This book was interesting. I feel like it would have been better to actually read this book rather than listen to it, because if I had been able to go in and like highlight areas, I feel like it would have stuck with me more. However, I have read better books on writing. I've read a few different books on writing and the art of writing, and this was kind of on the lower end of the totem pole, unfortunately. Robert McKee has a very poetic way of speaking, which really resonated with me. I really liked the way that he spoke about the art of writing overall. However, it seemed to me that he would get a little bit rambly at times, and he would lose me in the process of just explaining things. I would probably rate this book a 2.5 or a 3-star. It was okay. Would I listen to it again?
No.
Would I pick it up and, read a paperback version of it?
Probably not, because like I said, I've read better books on writing.
So maybe if I had picked it up as a paper copy the first time, it would have been different, but as things stand currently, I'm good. Third book that I read this year was Destroy the Day by Brigid Kemmerer. Again, this is one that I listened to as an audiobook. Destroy the Day was the third book in a series of hers that I have been reading, and the first book was fantastic. The second book was okay. The third book, dare I say, I'm sorry, it was disappointing. Definitely had its moments where I was on the edge of my seat and I was like, yes, yes. But then just overall, the finish of the story and the ending, I was like, yeah. It was one of those endings, and it was very disappointing for me. I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know how I would have changed it to make it better, but something didn't click. It didn't feel finished to me. There were also a couple of not so YA scenes. There was a lot of touchy-feely going on, and it happened multiple times towards the end. One of those times being between two male characters, which I was not a fan of. So once again, I got to the very end of the filming of this video, and I discovered that my phone cut me off halfway through. I was kind of cut off in the middle of talking about Destroy the Day by Brigid Kemmerer, and let's just sum it up to say I rated it 3 stars. It was not fantastic. It had some questionable content. Would not recommend. Moving on. Next book I read was a Kindle book called Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. The first third of this book was great, full of action. The action kind of carried over from the first book, and then in the second third, it's like the character ends up in this one location and doesn't move from this one location for the whole entirety of the middle portion of the book, and it just was a little bit dull to me. The only notable things that happened while they were in this one location were maybe there were some interpersonal relationship drama issues, but other than that, nothing. Nothing happens in the middle of the book. At the end of the last third of the book, the Darkling shows up, and I still don't know what y'all see with the Darkling. The people that said I would end up liking the Darkling as a character, where? This man better be selling his soul for the betterment of society, starting charities, building hospitals, starting dog shelters. I don't know. This man has no respect from me. Some people were like, oh, you're not gonna like him as a character, but you'll like him as a villain.
Girl, what? You can have him. You can have him.
Overall, this book was probably a 4 stars. It wasn't as good as the first one. If the whole book had been the first third, it would have been fantastic. It would have been incredible, but no. Spoiler alert, the Darkling forces the main character to marry him.
What do y'all see in this man? You can have him.
You can have him, sweetie. The 5th book on this list of books that I've read this year is The House of Eve by Sadeqa Johnson, and I desperately hope that I'm saying her name correctly. I'm pretty sure I am. If not, my fullest apologies. House of Eve is so good. I read this as an audiobook, so I didn't read it, I listened to it, and I truly believe that the narrators helped make this book. The narrators are 100% paid actors in this, because it's so good. It is so good. In this book, you are following 2 black women living in the 1950s. One of them is the birth mother of a child, and the other one is the adoptive mother of that same child. They don't know each other, so you're following their different perspectives and their very different ways of life leading up to the birth of the child, where the child is then passed over to the adoptive mother. It addressed so many different racial tension issues that were going on back then, along with just issues women faced. It addressed a situation that happened that was very common, unfortunately, back then, where, a young woman would get pregnant unexpectedly and would be forced to give that child over in an adoption situation. And it was such a tragic thing, and it happened not only in minorities and like people of color, but also among just young white women. And so it was a very interesting perspective to see, because in this book, the birth mother did not want to give that child up. And so there was a lot of emotions, and there was a lot that went into that. Overall, it was just such a beautiful story. It was such a touching story. I always like it when a book can make me have a physical reaction or some kind of emotional outburst reaction, and this book did, especially one scene with the adoptive mother. It was a scene that just made me so mad. And it's nothing against her, it's something another character in her storyline did. But then it's just also on the birth mother side, just the raw emotions. Like, I like teared up at times, and I think part of that was because of the narrators and how good they were. But it was so good. It was such a good book. I would highly recommend it. As far as content warnings are concerned, there are racial slurs that are used in this book. There's also like a fairly open door, I would describe it, bedroom scene, just as a note so you know going into it that those things are in there. So the last book on this list is called Audrey and the Legend of the Fire Rose, and it was written by my friend here on BookTube, Kristi A Cole. So congratulations, Kristi, on this book. It was so good. It was so delightful. So Audrey and the Legend of the Fire Rose is about this girl. It's a fantasy, and it's about this girl who comes across this manor while out in the woods with her parents, basically. There's like all this mystery. Her parents end up disappearing, and she's basically taken into this manor and raised as one of these children that grows up in the manor. And she's raised learning how to do stuff like combat and doesn't know much about the outside world. I've got a whole 16-minute video on it, so I recommend you watch that for my full thoughts and opinions. But just let's suffice it to say, because I'm running out of storage, it was really good. I would rate it 5 stars. I will put that video in the description box for you to watch. I don't think I have much else to say. I'm currently reading Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I've got about 80 pages left in that one, so we're almost there. That's really good so far, and I finally understand the significance of Forget-Me-Nots. Those of you who have read that will understand. So anyway, yeah. That's all for today, I guess. I hope y'all have an amazing rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever other time of day it is for you. And I will see you next time. I really hope that y'all have been able to hear the absolute chorus of birds that have been going on in the background for the entirety of me filming this video. Like, they are singing a full-on chorus in the background. They're doing their best, and I love that for them. So, yeah. Happy spring. Bye.